world torn apart by disaster, a new society has emerged. Scarred survivors band together, their shared humanity, the only thing that keeps them pushing on against the hordes. But amongst this chaos, a new hero has risen. In the tumult of survival, an idiot on a Segway rides around with his tackle in the wind and asks people about board games. This is the Guild.
Starring Ben Maddox as the Naked Warrior and Kai Herbertz as the Nervous Mechanic. What will they talk about this week? Will Ben sound like a moron? He'll probably come up with some bullshit lore or something. I just bring booze to work with me at this point. Frankly, I thought the new decade would see an uptick in my fortunes. All I'm seeing is an uptick of blood in my urine. Anyway, down the hatch.
You know, I didn't realise that they had such a large garage here. I mean, especially considering they've got no cars. Well, I mean, what do you do from day to day? What kind of things are you fixing?
Well, first off, I had to fix the car to get here to the cabin.
Oh yeah, you drove all the way from the fashion capital of Germany. Is that why you look so sexy?
I think I'm a little bit worn down from the trip, but yeah, it was a long trip, and avoiding looters, avoiding, stray dogs and stuff like that.
Well, the thing is, I'd imagine when you're wearing a skin-tight pair of crotchless velvet flares that looters would be gasping to just grab hold of your amazing clothing. How do you get your nipples so hard to poke through the shirt in that manner?
It's a long story, and I guess it's all survival training when society breaks down.
Well, I've heard that there's a lot of people who, came from the deserts of East Anglia, and their nipples had been so blasted by sandstorms that they remained forever erect, and actually some people use them to get into shelters by cutting glass with them. As an engineer, does that sound plausible?
It would sound plausible, but I don't think you have a glass door here. It was very difficult to get by your reinforced steel door, actually.
I mean, how did you get in?
Well, I just pressed the doorbell, so to speak, and then we had this whole conversation at the entrance, and thankfully you were kind enough to let me in.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, I am awful. I mean, every month I get on the rota for the, the security duty, and they say, now, Ben, be very careful. Make sure that people who you let in are not zombies. And the first day, I mean, there was this guy, he was really nice. I mean, he was green. His face was falling off, but he seemed nice enough, and I thought, someone that nice isn't going to be a zombie, and 15 people got eaten that day. And I looked at you and I thought, wow, you had a spanner in your hand, crotchless purple flares, and sideburns in the shape of a Franz Josef, and I thought, well, you've got to be a decent guy, and then that accent is so alluring, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that actually explains why there's still room in the compound, because I was wondering, if you're getting in so many people, surely space must be limited, but if you cull the population by accidentally letting in a zombie here and there, I can now see how this works, so I better stay in your good graces so that no accidents happen to me.
Did you put inverted commas around the word accidentally then?
I actually did, yeah.
I would never consciously allow my colleagues in the compound, even the assholes who I don't like, to be eaten by the zombies.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's your curiosity, like a pet.
Look at my face.
Pet project.
Look at my face. Is this the face of a conscious zombie letter-inner?
Didn't you just admit to it, basically?
Accidentally, I said, is this the face of a conscious zombie letteriner? I don't do it deliberately.
I also thought you did the air quote accidentally. So sorry, I completely mistook your meaning there.
No, I mean, this is the point, right? In the future, I never accidentally... I mean, those air quotes, since they've become sentient and grown fangs, it's very difficult to throw air quotes around because, they can bite your neck and kill you.
Yeah, it's really dangerous, this apocalypse. I hadn't really realized.
How did you feel that, in Germany, when a third of the population developed laser eyes? Were you one of the ones that developed laser eyes, or were you one of the 2/3 of the unfortunate?
I'm unfortunately one of these normal people, and I had to kind of make the trip without any enhancements.
But, I mean, how did Dusseldorf feel? You woke up one morning and 1 out of every 3 people could fire lasers from their eyeballs. I mean, did you just go to work that morning? To the engineering plant? Or did you think, oh, well, this will help with my welding?
It's, all of these things, you just see them on the news. And it was really bizarre seeing all these buildings go up in flames and... people speculating what happened, is it a Martian attack or something like that? And then it turned out to be this weird laser eye mutation. It was really, really strange.
Yeah, it's Detlev from number 32, isn't it?
Sorry?
Hallo Detlev, wie geht's dir? Ich bin sehr gut, dankeschön. Was magst du heute? Nix. Was magst du, Detlev? Ich geh schießen mit meinen Lasers. Was that how your conversations went?
Possibly, but I don't know. I actually only know one person with that name, and he's like 60 or maybe 70. I don't know. So I don't think there are too many people with that name around. So not too many laser eyes. Maybe that whole figure with 1/3 of the population is a bit inflated. I think that was just a propaganda lie.
Well, this is the problem with the yellow press, isn't it? You can't trust a thing they say.
Yeah, that's true. But we don't have to deal with the yellow press anymore because they were all eaten by zombies.
Or turned into zombies. Yeah. Piers Morgan, I shot an air rifle at Piers Morgan's zombie testicles yesterday. It was wonderful. And he sort of went, like that. It was the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. That's actually a name I'm familiar with. Back from the old days.
Oh, I know. I mean, the thing is, in some ways, considering that Piers Morgan is now an ambulatory zombie, and you can fire air rifles at his green and mouldy testicles, in some ways, this new world is better, isn't it? Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I guess, in a way. It does have its upsides.
So I was speaking German to you earlier.
Yeah.
Marks out of 10. What would you give my German out of 10? 10 being superb, fluent German, better than anyone in the world. 0 being, my God, you've lived in German-speaking countries for years and you barely speak a sentence of German. Where do I lie on that rubric?
I would say an 8.5. It was actually very good, but you could tell the accent just like you can tell my accent. And,
accent? I haven't heard an accent at all.
And thank you, very flattering. But as you know, it's always harsh grading in Germany, so I can't give you full points here.
So what would you say if I said to you, Katzelschwarf?
See, I didn't understand that one.
Du verstehst Katzelschwarf nicht. Was ist mit dir, du so?
Maybe that's some Berlin slang stuff.
No, that's Viennese slang.
Everybody needs to speak High German and not these slang words.
So for those who are listening through the tannoy, what I said was Katzelschwarf, which is Viennese for Eichkatzelschwanz, which translates to
something cat tail.
Are you really German?
Yeah, I don't know. Is this still part of the ritual to get into the compound? Do I need my backstory to match up, or?
Well, you're coming here with that. I mean, I was being nice when I said I didn't notice an accent. I mean, you're coming here with that outrageous accent, and then suddenly you don't speak German. And when I spoke German appallingly earlier, you gave me an 8.5.
Not the Austrian German variant.
But you know what an Eichkatze is, right?
No, actually, I don't.
It's what you term. Hello, welcome to the Guild Linguistics. It's what you term as an Eichhörnchen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, I know that one.
But trans the Alps, they're called Eichkatze.
Ah. I guess I should have known that, but for some reason I just blanked.
Well, the Germans... I mean, in Dusseldorf, all you've got is high fashion. So I'd imagine you don't want to think about anywhere else in the world, do you?
Well, I don't even know what to say to that. I'm not too much of a fashion person, but
you look gorgeous. But anyway,
thank you.
So I don't know if you're aware, because you haven't been here long, but I improve people's days by riding around nude on a Segway, asking people questions about board games.
See, I didn't know that part. I only got some notes that this would be a safe place, but I didn't have any idea about the nude Segway part. But,
well, excuse me. I've got to prepare for my questions. So, I can't ask the questions until I feel suitably free. And now, I mean, look upon me. Is this not the grandest thing you've ever seen?
It's I have to up my rating to a 9 out of 10, yes, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I go around and I ask people questions, and this time I asked because, we're just into the new year, and it's nice that we maintain, the calendar, even though it seems decadent and pointless now. But, we maintain the calendar, and we have our little rituals. And so I asked, what do you want from gaming in the next year? Now imagine that this compound isn't here and you're back in Dusseldorf and life is normal and beautiful and sweet. What do you want to see from gaming in 2020?
2020, so going back a long time, so to speak.
That's right. The premise is very solid.
Yeah, but the good thing is that my memory is so bad that I forgot most of what happened back then. So can still...
Well, that was the great memory wipe of 2020, wasn't it? So that makes sense.
Yeah, of course, being the small indie, I would love to see more indie games, more indie developers. But... realistically, I think it's still going to stay mostly the same. It's going to be the big names, although there's this news that, or is it news? I don't know, about Fantasy Flight Games with the Star Wars license. So things might change there.
What's happened with the Star Wars license?
Didn't they announce? Maybe I'm hallucinating. It's all these compound mushrooms. Didn't they announce that they had the last expansion out for one of their Star Wars games, and people are speculating whether they are losing the license? Something like that. It's nothing confirmed, so it's just, something happens and then everybody is feeding the rumor mill, apparently including myself, bringing this up now.
I mean, I don't know, how long have you been playing games?
For a long time. So basically since I was 4 years old, something like that.
Because I remember when I started playing games like hobby games around sort of 2012, and even then, like, the only licensed game that was any good was Battlestar Galactica. If games were licensed, that was basically a synonym for being rubbish, right? And then sort of over the years that's completely changed and they've become super popular. What do you think that is? Why have these licensed games become, the big hitters in the industry?
Well, I think it's the scale in a way. So in video games, I think that mostly still holds true, that licensed games are not, although that changes as well. But before, it was also the case that licensed games weren't so good because all the money was spent on the license, apparently. But with board games, I think that this is completely speculation. I thought, actually, I don't know. That's the problem here. Sorry, I'm rambling, but I was just wondering about license cost in board games. But I think that a lot of people, for instance, there were these games based on Brandon Sanderson's books, and I think for authors which also have strong IPs, but not as strong as something like Star Wars, it's to them, it's also kind of good to branch into a different medium, and I think that the negotiation there is a bit more attainable than if I wanted to license some big, well-established property.
And I mean, do you have a licensed game of choice?
The one that you mentioned, Battlestar Galactica, is actually in my one of the 5 games on Board Game Geek that are rated 10 out of 10. And otherwise, there are, as you said, there are many great licensed games. For instance, in my gaming group, we used to play this Spartacus game, which was also surprisingly good.
And so, you're a small indie publisher. What do you want for you in 2020? What would be... because you don't do it as a job. Is that an ambition? Or, imagine you're in the real world now. Is your primary job something you love so much you wouldn't want to give up anyway?
See, that's the thing. If it were a sustainable business, I would definitely do that, because the board gaming sphere is just filled with super interesting and super nice people. Just as an anecdote, when I went to the UK Games Expo for the first time in 2017 and had a booth there, I actually accidentally left the window on my car open. And then people approached me at the booth to tell me that they saw I had left the window open, and everybody was just like super friendly, and it was really, really a great experience.
And I assume when you got to the car, everything was stolen.
No, actually not. It's as you know, UK Games Expo, so people in Britain are very polite and friendly, and
very, very polite and friendly. The fact that they started the whole apocalypse by the Brexit Boris axis, has nothing to do with it. But yeah, very friendly. Very friendly. Go to any English town.
That was just one little gear in this whole apocalypse machine. I don't think that the UK can be single-handedly blamed for this. Maybe
I'm just into British exceptionalism. But what do you want to see from gaming as a gamer in 2020?
That's a good question. So this first thing that sprang to mind doesn't really have to do with games, but more with conventions. And you've been to Spiel many times, and you probably noticed as well that in the initial halls 1, 2, 3, where all the big names are, there is this arms race going on, where people put up bigger and bigger screens with more and more flashy things. And in the later halls, it's not the case. Everybody is still doing this whole analog board gaming kind of thing. And I prefer that. I actually completely dislike this whole barrage of technology and sound and lights that is becoming more prevalent just to catch some eyeballs. So I would prefer if Spiel stepped in and said, this is not allowed in our show. if you want to do that, go to Gamescom or some other electronics game fair, but not here. So
I think it's kind of unavoidable, and I see what you mean, because when I got into gaming, there was only one really big company, one company that felt big anyway. And I know there were lots of other bigger companies, but that was Fantasy Flight, basically. And then since Asmodee has become a juggernaut and gaming has become more professionalised, it doesn't feel as ad hoc anymore. It doesn't feel that game designers are just, people in bedrooms cobbling something together and then, hoping that people will be interested in. It feels more like a professional industry. Does that leave you cold, or do you think it's just an inevitability? Because without that increase in people, you wouldn't have anything to do in the gaming world, right?
I don't want to give any hard numbers, but from my sales figures, it almost doesn't matter. I'm of two minds here. On the one hand, I of course prefer if people are professional, but on the other hand, there are certain downsides to it. There's if things get too serious and too professional, then it becomes very cutthroat. And I think at the moment it's still a very friendly space where I started, and people initially they didn't talk to me, but they started talking to me, and they are very supportive and friendly. And for instance, there is this meetup in Essen at the Unperfect House every month of fellow game designers, and there's none of this, this is secret, this is my idea, this kind of thing that you sometimes have in other entertainment niches.
It's amazing. I was watching some videos on YouTube on the history of video games, and they were sort of talking about those early Nintendo titles. And what blew my mind about video games, because, I don't know loads about the industry of board games, but I know sort of. And what blew my mind is sort of right from the beginning, right from the NES, the figures were crazy. You're talking 30 million, 40 million copies of a game being sold. And I think the reason that board games, hobby board games at least, will never quite get to that situation where, you're having a lot of people going, no, you're not allowed to look at my stuff, or I'm not playtesting unless it's people in-house, is because I don't think the money is going to be there, right? If you sell... it used to be, and things have gone up, it used to be that if you sold 3,000, that was good. Now I think that's, if you look at Wingspan, for instance, that's sort of sold 60 to 80,000. That's a big success. But, it's only Ticket to Ride, Catan, Carcassonne that are selling into the millions, and then it's the low millions, and then it's over a decade or 15 years, right? So, do you envisage a time where there's ever going to be lots of money in gaming? Like video game money? 30 million copies of Mario sold in the first year,
No, actually I don't think there is, because even with Wingspan, the demand was then so high that production didn't catch up quick enough, and I think that's the big bottleneck that everybody is. Of course, if there's more demand, then more production facilities will open up. But with video games and digital distribution, it's very easy. Also in air quotes, of course it's not easy, but it's easier than getting the games out than in the board game space. But for a developer or designer, there is then also more competition. But
of course that wasn't the issue in the 80s though, was it? You know what I mean? In the 80s it was physical cartridges, it was through the post, you didn't have the internet, and so, even then, you're selling 30 million copies of Mario. It just blew my mind that sort of almost right from the beginning, the figures were insane in a way that hobby board games, I just can't ever imagine. Can you imagine? I'm sure even your big games, your monopolies, don't sort of sell that in a year, right?
Would be actually interesting to see the figures. But at least on the plus side, on the bright side, the Essen Fair, I've attended that since the 90s, but not as an exhibitor, just as a visitor. And that has grown from year to year. There's no stagnation in sight. So I think it's growing, but it's not like has this exponential explosion.
So I was speaking to Piotr Woloson. He's Polish, so I guarantee you that pronunciation is correct. He has given me a list of what he wants to see in games in the new year, and I'm gonna say them, and I'm gonna get your reactions to it to see if you agree with Piotr. And I assume that's how you pronounce it. How's your Polish?
It's a bit rusty.
Nostrovia. That's all I know.
Isn't that Russian?
Also Polish, I think.
Okay.
Nostrovi, maybe.
Yeah.
All those Slavic languages, they're exactly the same.
Okay, so
it's just a myth. It's the same with the Romance languages. Italian and Spanish are exactly the same. They just lie to you to make you think that they're speaking something different. It's a conspiracy.
I see.
All right, so Piotr Woloson. That's definitely not how you say it. He said he wants more games that are deep, and then in brackets he's put have high replayability. Do you think deep and high replayability are synonyms?
No.
Explain yourself.
But, well... Maybe... well, initially I thought with maybe there are synonyms. I'm retracting my gut statement because I wanted to say chess is deep, but then again, chess also has high replayability. So maybe I'm wrong. I will retract my statement.
It's a facet of depth, right? Because I guess depth implies that it's difficult to unpack and it's difficult to develop heuristics that win every time, and you can take different paths within a deep game. So I guess they are kind of synonymatic, aren't they?
Yeah, but the thing is, because the reason why I said initially no is because at the moment I'm equating have high replayability with a variable starting setup, but of course that's not a correct equation, but that's just
I think that's a complete myth.
Yeah.
I think this idea that, you have to have loads of new buildings and loads of new tiles and loads of new stuff, and it has to be set up differently every time for the game to be infinitely playable is just not true as far as I can see. As long as the gameplay is... So I was playing City of the Big Shoulders the other day. And, I mean, that's the same, essentially. I mean, yes, you have sort of different buildings, but everything's a sort of variation on one thing. But City of the Big Shoulders is such a game that depends upon player interaction that every game is different, right?
Yeah.
So he says, have high interaction, no multiplayer solitaire. How do you feel about that?
Well, I can see where he's coming from, and I actually like those kind of games as well, but I think, and I think that's why he wishes for more games like that, I think the trend is going the other way. So there's a lot of people who do like these Euro games where they have not that much interaction with other people, or there is interaction, but it's not hindering you too much in your own idea. If you have an idea, I'm going to do this strategy, then typically you cannot be easily stopped by an aggressive player or something like that. And I actually designed my own games with that in mind a bit, because normally I like to play competitive American style games. but I've started to also design for this taste that it shouldn't be destructive interaction. But I guess you can also have high interaction without being destructive. So that's what I aimed for. I'm completely rambling tonight. It's been a long day. I'm fighting off zombies, and then I had to get past the door that was a nail biter as well. So forgive me for my.
And they put you straight to work in the carpool.
Yeah, exactly.
Tweaking nipples and greasing knobs. I mean, it's hard. So he also says, can be mastered. Is that important for you? The feeling that you can master a game?
What does that entail?
I mean, I guess playing at a super high level, knowing that, what it implies is a game that doesn't have a lot of random chance, that is you get better every time you play it. You can get to a point where you exhibit a level of mastery.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I if that is the idea, then I completely agree. And it's in most games, they are not that trivial that I can play them once and be at the highest level. So I do like that, but if it's mastered in the way that now I have attained the highest level, not sure. There should also always be room for improvement. But
well, it's very much the Schopenhauer model of humanity, isn't it? So Schopenhauer basically dictated that human beings vacillate between achievement and ennui. So you work and you work and you work towards doing this one thing, and if you achieve it, the pleasure of that achievement is almost instantaneous. And then almost instantaneously, the pendulum swings again, and you're basically like, oh, I'm bored now, what can I do? And so his idea is that it's not actually achievement that we crave, it's the journey towards achievement. And that seems very plausible as a sort of human trait to me. Success, I assume, is something of an anticlimax, though I've never experienced it.
Yeah. Well, you've got this nice compound, so I would say you've succeeded.
Oh God, I wish it was mine. The Grand Leader. No,
who's the mastermind?
No, it's the Grand Leader. He came in when it was just a cabin, and he made all of this. I am just a minion, unfortunately, a nude, sexy Segway minion.
I see. I was led here under false premises.
Well, I mean, if you think by talking to me that you're going to get extra rations, you've got another thing coming.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
Not going to happen. I'm a nothing. I'm a nothing here. So he says no to multiplayer solitaire.
Yeah.
Issue with multiplayer solitaire?
I certainly have an issue with that. Yeah. I
absolutely adore multiplayer solitaire.
Really?
I love unraveling the puzzle of the game, and I love fighting against my own idiocy. And I hate it if I make a plan and it can just be completely upset by the whim of another player. That annoys the hell out of me. I mean, it depends on the game, it depends on the depth, it depends on the premise of the game. I like combat games, I like, one-on-one, back and forth games. But I hate games in which, from one turn to the next, the board state has changed so much that I can't plan my turn in between turns.
Yeah. That was one of the issues in my first commercial game, which, if you played with 5 players, it would change drastically. With 3 players, it was still okay. You could plan a little bit ahead.
No, and he says point salads. He doesn't like point salads.
Yeah, the issue I have with point salads is that people, at least in my gaming group, tend to still try to figure out what the point status is at the moment. And then they go into this loop of analyzing everything. And I just want them to intuit things and get on with it. But the funny thing is that they have completely the opposite impression, and they are of the opinion that I do that, which I think is not the case. So point salads, either way, are completely out the door because I don't like my friends taking forever and they don't like me taking forever for turns, and I think point salads contribute to that massively.
And also he says, abstract soulless Euros where you convert X to Y to VPs and then after 2 hours compare your spreadsheets, which to me, and I know he's being facetious here, but to me sounds the perfect gaming experience.
Yeah, okay. So, what's your favorite game then?
Well, my favourite game is the best game that's ever been made, objectively, which is Through the Ages, which is not a soulless Euro, but there's nothing like sitting down on a weekday night and just playing something that is just mechanical. It's a beautiful piece of engineering where every piece of the engine has been polished and then made sure it fits together perfectly, and it plays in an hour and a half to 2 hours, and there's no story there because games don't deliver story well. That's not their point. What they deliver is flow state and feeling and experience and mastery, and this idea that through your own brain you can make this cardboard and plastic into an engine that works and runs. And I don't need bad writers writing bad writing. What I want is great mechanics that come together and make something entertaining. And so many of these games that people call soulless Euros are exactly this. It's engineering, and it's skillful engineering, and I love it.
Yeah, it's I've only played it on the app, and a friend of mine played it, but by his account of things, it takes significantly longer than 2 hours. So I never tried it at the table. But I think that's also the beauty of the hobby, that there are so many different tastes and so many different types of games. And I used to be, actually this is the admission of guilt here. I used to be one of those people who would think, well, my opinion is clearly right and everybody else's opinion is clearly wrong. But it's as you get older, you kind of realize, no, actually it's just a matter of different tastes, and this is what Piotr doesn't like, you love. So it's both valid in a way.
Well, I mean, I did some scientific experiments. I've had quite a lot of time on my hands since I came here, right? So I've done some scientific experiments. And do you know what my experiments... I'm not going to tell you the experiments because you'll just go and do them, and, you know, I don't want people stealing my ideas. But you know what the results of my experiments were?
50 dead people from zombie bites.
Yes, I mean, you don't need to mention that. No one knows that was me yet,
okay,
so
yeah.
Keep your mouth shut. But no, after all of that, I came up the results, and these are empirically proven by science, that I did that my opinion is always right.
Correct, yes.
Always right. And if you disagree with me, empirically wrong. If Einstein wasn't outside the fence now, walking around skeletally, going, oh, my stomach, oh, my Bauch, es tut so weh, he would agree with me that my opinions are always right.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to be kicked out.
So, Barry Dublé, I was speaking to him the other day, Badger the Brave, and he said, someone just next door who's up for playing any time. That's what I want this year. So if you think back to those glorious days in Dusseldorf, and, you know, when you were a married man, were you one of those people who was lucky enough to have a spouse who was into games, or was your game playing more sort of rare?
Both. It's we did manage to start a campaign of Gloomhaven, but it took quite some time to finish that. Yes. So if you play like one scenario every month, then can have years of fun.
But did you realise that if you arrange the pieces of Gloomhaven in a certain configuration, that it'll bring on the apocalypse.
That's why we slowed it down. We did our share not to bring on the apocalypse.
Yeah, well, you did your share. A lot of people didn't, and that was part of the problem with the popularity of bloody Gloomhaven.
Yeah. Well,
and
Clue
look at where we are now.
Clue is in the title.
Exactly. And I was speaking to Peter D. Duckwarp, and he said, I would love to see more Euros with real-world themes. No more flipping, and we're all adults here, you can use swear words, steampunk or Cthulhu, he said. It's a difficult word to pronounce. And no more fantasy or space. And no more plastic. Isn't that what games are for, though? To take you out of the mundane, workaday, quotidian world into a world of fantasy and zombies and Cthulhu Fatangan, Cthulhu Aurelie, you know what I mean?
It's in my gaming group, most definitely, but some people just want to be taken through the ages and measure the wingspan of birds. And so that's apparently the only valid point of view. So, although Cthulhu might be a cat game.
It might be a cat game with a cat with tentacles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why do you... I guess this comes down to the question I want to ask, which is, why do you game? What do you get from it? Is it intellectual stimulation? Is it being immersed in a story? Is it being part of a community? Is it sitting round a table with, people you like or you want to get to know? What is it? Why do you game?
It's. I think it always depends at what time you would ask me that. And so back before, when I was a kid, I played games to win the games. That was the main goal. And then later on, as friendships drifted apart, it was actually a great way to connect with old friends, that we would meet up every month, every 2 months, and then sit down and play the latest games for a weekend. Or not just the latest games. Actually, we have a mix of new games and old games. And I think a lot of people are working, or more and more people are working in front of computer screens at their day job. And so in their free time, they don't necessarily want to do that. And then sitting down, facing real people and playing a game, having a drink, the whole social aspect is, I think, the huge drive for this hobby.
I have this theory.
Again.
I mean,
it's just a theory and not an experiment.
Well, I haven't done the experiment yet, but I assume what my assumption is, by the law of Maddox, which is my opinions are always right.
So
I assume, I've taken the need for experiment away, because by Maddox's law, any hypothesis I have automatically becomes correct, right?
Mm-hmm.
My opinions are always right. That's Maddox's law. So that means any hypothesis I have is automatically correct, ipso facto, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, exactly. So, my theory, hypothesis, which is now truth, is this, is people don't matter.
What?
People don't matter. All people are ambulatory bags of meat to facilitate you playing games, right?
That's just the apocalypse talking.
As long as there's people there who can do their job and manipulate their pieces, I can play the games. Doesn't matter who it is, particularly. Sure, it's more pleasant if you like them, but fundamentally, I'm there for the games. I'm not there for the social interaction. Because there's many more efficient ways to socially interact, i.e. drinking the booze, than...
Yeah, but you can combine that.
You can, but cut out the middleman. Cut out the board, drink the booze. I mean, I am going to get to the point where I'm having a shouting row with someone, calling them all the dickheads under the sun, far quicker if I eliminate the game from the equation and just heavily drink, you see.
Okay.
And that's the goal of any conversation, right? To get to the point where you say something that offends a person so much that they start shouting at you and you start shouting back. Am I right or am I right? Bear in mind Maddox's law.
Yeah. Well, there's also this third option of just sitting, keep sitting and eating while people are doing that and having a row. But
I think food is massively overrated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially here. I don't know if you've tried the food yet.
You mean the rations that are valid for the next 50 years? No, I haven't. Right. I haven't tried those.
So, out of 10, right? 0 being, ooh, that's disgusting. 10 being, ooh, that's palatable and makes me feel slightly tingly. How would you rate the flavour of turd?
I haven't tried it yet.
Oh, well. Rations coming up at 6 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
I imagine you're going to love it.
Okay, sounds good. Looking forward to that.
Anyway, I've got to head off now because, I mean, being just a lowly minion in the hierarchy of the compound, and I can see the disappointment on your face. I am sorry. I've got work to do, so I'm going to head off. I'm going to leave you to twiddle your thumbs and decide how you're going to use your mechanic skills on the cars we don't have. And thanks for talking to me, and thank you for keeping your eyes above the neck. You make me feel like a much classier lady than I would otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for buzzing me in and not letting me get eaten. And I will work on the auto turrets so that the compound stays nice and safe.
Now, if at 18 I could have looked into the future and said that this was it, I would have ended it there and then. Alright! I'll get the bloody copy out, slave driver. So, what's this? If you want to join the guild, go to 3,209. For God's sake, write something horrible to him. I'm reading it out! Alright!